Aye, sit closer to the fire, friend. Let the warmth reach your hands and let the crackling of the logs lull your thoughts the way the sea once lulled mine. I'll speak slowly, for the night is long, and these memories are not ones to be rushed. I am an old man now, older than any warrior expects to become, and yet when I close my eyes, I still feel the roll of the open water beneath my feet. I smell the salt on the wind. I hear the heavy timbers of our longship groaning like an old friend stretching his limbs, and I remember the secrets of successful sailing, the quiet truths that kept us alive when the sea decided to test our resolve. You may think a Viking's life is all axes and shields, loud feasts and louder battles, but that is only the part sung in the halls. Sailing, that is different. Sailing requires patience, thought, caution, and respect. Even the fiercest warrior becomes a humble student when he steps onto a longship. The sea does not care for your pride, or your blade, or your bravery. She only watches, silent and deep, waiting to see who understands her language. The first secret I ever learned was this: a voyage begins long before your boots touch the deck. Preparation. That is the true beginning of any successful journey. You see, when the Jarl announced that we would sail westward, the young ones, full of fire and foolish courage, rushed to sharpen their axes or polish their helmets. But the older warriors like me, we went to the ship. We checked the planks, the rivets, the tar. We inspected the oars for cracks, ran our palms along the grain of the wood, making sure it would not betray us in open water. A single weak beam could mean a quick death miles from home. And oh, the ropes. Gods, the ropes. Many a voyage was lost not to battle or storm but to poor rope work. Salt water eats through fibres faster than most imagine, so the rope must be tarred, dried, coiled properly. If you coil it wrong, if you let it twist or kink, it will turn against you when you need it most, slipping from your fingers or tightening when it should loosen. Another secret. Every man on the ship must know every role. A good crew sails. A great crew survives. If the helmsman falls, someone must take his place without hesitation. If the lookout collapses from exhaustion, another must climb the mast as easily as stepping across the floor of his home. Even warriors who swore their strength was only for the shield wall learned to row, to tie knots, to read wind and water. I have seen a hardened fighter panic at the sight of a wave rising taller than a house, and I have seen a fisherman, small and quiet, guide an entire crew through a storm with nothing but instinct and calm. The sea chooses her champions differently than the battlefield. Remember that. Before every voyage, we also spoke to our ship. That may sound foolish to you, but you've never known a longship the way we did. Our Draka was not wood and iron. No, she was alive. She had a spirit, the spirit of every hand that carved her, every tree that gave its body to her, every voyage she survived, every storm she cut through. We would lay our palms on her hull and whisper promises. We will not fail you. We will bring you home. Not prayers agreements, sailors' oaths, bonds made in salt and wind. Then came the supplies. You never carry too much, or you will burden the ship. But you never carry too little, or you will burden yourself. The balance is delicate. Dried fish, hardened bread, smoked meats, barrels of water and ale, yes. Ale, because water grows foul on the sea faster than you would believe. Herbs for sickness, tools for mending, cloth for patching sails, even small charms for luck, though few admitted to needing them. And of course, navigation tools, though not the kind you use now. The stars were our map, the sun our guide, the wind our companion. At night, when the sky was clear, we could read our position like a poem. The North Star, steady, unwavering, was the greatest friend a Viking sailor ever had. I still remember the first time I found it on my own. My father thumped my shoulder so hard I nearly fell into the water. But the sea is not always kind enough to give you the stars. Clouds roll in, fog blinds, winds shift. That is when the true test begins. The young ones always feared storms more than anything else. They imagined towering waves, lightning splitting the sky, the ship rocking so violently that men are tossed overboard like scraps. Those things happened, often. But the real danger was not the storm that roared like a beast. It was the quiet sea, the deceptive calm. A flat, glassy sea with no wind. That is the sailor's true nightmare. Days trapped, oars wearing out, Water supplies shrinking, sun burning your skin until it peels, silence so heavy it crushes the spirit. That is when men go mad. That is when fights break out. That is when the sea tests your mind, not your strength. The secret to surviving that is simple, though few accept it. You must surrender to the sea's pace. You cannot force the wind. You cannot command the currents. You wait. You conserve strength. You keep your spirit calm. I once spent 8 days in such a stillness. 8 days where the sea was so flat it looked like polished obsidian. Our crew nearly tore itself apart. But we survived because our helmsman, an old man named Bjorn, told stories every night. Stories of the gods, of heroes, of long-forgotten voyages. He kept our minds busy so our fear would not take root. Sometimes survival is not about ropes, or sails, or stars. Sometimes survival is simply about keeping despair out of the minds of the men beside you. And there is another secret, one the skalds rarely sing about. Fear is not your enemy. Panic is. Fear sharpens you. Fear keeps your hands steady. Fear keeps you respectful of the sea's power. But panic blinds. Panic kills. I have seen strong warriors drown because panic made them thrash in water that could have held them afloat with ease. The greatest sailors I ever knew were never fearless. No, they were humble, observant, patient. They listened to the sea, the wind, the creaking of the ship. They knew that even the smallest change or shift in temperature, a new smell on the breeze, a strange rhythm in the waves, meant something. The sea speaks, friend. She whispers constantly. Most men are simply too loud in their own minds to hear her, but if you listen, truly listen, she will guide you, and that perhaps is the greatest secret of all. A good Viking does not conquer the sea. He partners with it. Now, the fire burns low, and I have spoken much. There are more secrets to tell, many more. Secrets of storms, of enemy ships, of nighttime sailing, of sudden attacks, of winter voyages and the harsh cold that tears at flesh and rope alike. Aye, settle in, friend. You asked for more, and I will give it. The night is long, and these old bones remember far more than I ever expected them to. Let the fire warm your face, and let your breathing grow slow. That's how we used to breathe on the open water softly, steadily, never letting our thoughts race too far ahead. A sailor who worries about the storm before it arrives is already halfway drowned. Now that you know how a voyage truly begins on land, long before the first wave touches the hull, let me tell you how we handled the sea once she decided to show us her many moods. For you see, the sea is never the same 2 days in a row. Sometimes she is gentle and playful, sometimes cold and distant, and sometimes she is furious, lashing out like a wounded beast. And just like with people, the trick to survival lies in recognizing her mood early, before she decides your fate for you. The first thing a Viking learns at sea is this: the water speaks long before the sky does. A storm doesn't begin with thunder. It begins with the smell of the air. I remember one morning we were sailing west toward lands unknown, with the rising sun burning red along the horizon. The air felt heavy. Not warm, but heavy, like a wet cloth draped over your shoulders. I inhaled, and the taste of the wind had gone metallic. Not salty, not fresh, metallic. That was the sea whispering. A young warrior beside me laughed, said I was imagining things. That afternoon, lightning split the sky. The secret is in the small signs, the kind of things only experience teaches you. You watch how the birds behave. If they fly low or vanish suddenly, the storm is already on its way. You watch the shape of the waves. If they come in uneven sets, rushing over each other as if fleeing something, the winds are shifting. Even the colour of the water changes, darkening like the mood of an angry god. But the most reliable sign: silence. A strange, eerie silence that stretches across the water. No gulls, no wind, no creaking wood, just stillness. That kind of silence wraps around the ship like a cold hand. It means the sea is holding her breath before striking. When we saw that silence fall, we tightened every rope, extra tar on the seams, spare oars stored safely, the sail rolled and tied down. Every man took his place, no joking, no boasting, just slow, steady breathing, preparation, and then the storm would come. You probably imagine giant waves crashing over the sides, men screaming, lightning flashing so often you go blind from the glare. Those storms exist, aye, but they are not the ones that kill the most sailors. No, the deadliest storm is the one that creeps up on you, the one that starts gentle, a drizzle, a puff of wind, nothing more. The young ones smile, thinking it's harmless, but the old sailors, we know better. The rain grows colder, the wind slowly shifts its angle. The waves lift your ship a little higher with each passing minute. It's like watching a child grow into a giant one blink at a time. By the time the young ones realise the danger, the sea has already decided their fate. And so we had another secret. Never trust a small storm. Treat every change in the weather as a warning. Respect the sea even when she seems harmless. A man who waits for fear to arrive before preparing is a man who will meet the gods sooner than he hoped. Now, when the storm does hit with full force, there are rules, unspoken, but carved into every Viking's mind. First, you never stand unless you must. The deck becomes a treacherous beast slick, shaking, rising and falling without warning. More men fall in storms than in battle. A wave can sweep you overboard in the blink of an eye, and once you're in the water, well, no longship can turn fast enough to save you, not in a storm. Second, you trust the helmsman with your life. The helmsman is the master of fate when the sea rages. He must know how to angle the ship so the waves strike the bow, not the side. If a wave hits broadside, even a strong longship can flip like a child's toy. A good helmsman watches the water, not the sky. His eyes never leave the waves. Never. Third, you row steady, not strong. Young warriors panic and row with all their strength, trying to fight the sea, but the sea cannot be fought. A good sailor rows with the rhythm of the waves. He lets the water guide his strength. He does not resist the ocean, he dances with it. Fourth, you keep your voice calm. Shouting spreads panic. Panic spreads death. Even in the worst storms, the best captains spoke quietly, giving orders with the calmness of a man sitting at a hearth. Their calm wrapped around us like a cloak, and we rode better for it. But let me tell you a truth many forget. Not all dangers come from storms. Bright sunny days brought their own challenges. The glare off the water blinded men, heat exhausted rowers. The peaceful sea tempted warriors into relaxation. And on those perfect days when the wind carried our ship effortlessly, that was when our guard slipped. That's when enemy ships struck. I remember one such day, the sails full, the sea gentle, the songs loud. We were halfway through our midday meal when the lookout shouted. On the horizon, long, thin lines of sails rising like the fins of sharks. Raiders. Our own kind, most likely another clan. Another hungry crew seeking easy prey. You might think battle at sea is all chaos, but no. There is a quiet, deliberate rhythm to it. Speed matters more than strength. Position matters more than numbers. A skilled captain will angle his ship so the enemy approaches from the side where the sun blinds them. Another trick is to sail toward the wind slow for us, yes, but slower still for the enemy, giving us the advantage. But do you know the greatest secret in sea combat? You never let the enemy decide the distance. Too far, and they pelt you with arrows. Too close, and they board you too easily. You choose the moment, you choose when to strike. And if the captain is wise, if the crew is disciplined, a battle can be won before the first axe meets a shield. But sailing is not all battles and storms. There are quiet nights, 2 nights when the sea is calm, the stars stretch endlessly above, and the only sound is the gentle slap of water against the hull. On those nights, a sailor feels small, in a good way, as if the world is too vast for worries, too beautiful for fear. Those nights keep a man sane, because the sea can break your body, aye, but the long lonely days can break your mind. A good crew tells stories, sings softly, keeps spirits high. A ship without laughter is a ship that won't see home again. And that brings me to another secret. Survival depends on the hearts of the men beside you, not their muscles, not their bravery, their hearts. Strong hearts stay steady in storms. Strong hearts keep rowing when arms tremble. Strong hearts believe in home even when the horizon feels endless. The sea takes many things, time, strength, youth, but she gives something too, a bond between sailors stronger than iron. You eat together, fight together, freeze together, survive together. By the end of a voyage, your crew is your family. You know their breath, their rhythm, their moods, and that unity, That is what keeps you alive. Now the fire crackles low again, and the night deepens. I can tell you more. The secrets of navigating by stars, the dangers of winter voyages, the tricks for keeping warm on icy waters, the rare miracles we witnessed far from shore. Aye. Lean closer to the fire, friend. The night is still young, and the sea well, she never runs out of things to teach. If you listen carefully, you might even hear her in the hiss of the flames. They sound alike sometimes. Both wild, both alive, both with 1,000 moods. Now that you know how we read storms and survive the sea's tempers, you should know the greatest tool a Viking sailor ever had, the night sky. Strange, isn't it? Men fear the dark, yet darkness guided us more faithfully than the sun ever did. Anyone can steer by daylight. It's easy to follow the wind when you see the horizon stretching clear in every direction. But a true sailor, one who can cross the world and return home, he trusts the stars. Let me tell you what those stars meant to us. The sky is a map. You people today travel with little glowing boxes that tell you where to turn. But in my time, we had nothing but memory and the heavens above. And those heavens, they were more dependable than any earthly thing. At the centre of everything stood the North Star. We called it Leidastiana, the guiding star. Unmoving, steady, loyal as a good friend. Find that star, and you find your direction. Lose sight of it, and the sea grows much larger around you. I remember one night's smooth waters, the ship gliding like a feather. When a young sailor asked me why the North Star mattered so much, I told him, because even the bravest man needs something that never changes. We all fall back on anchors when the world grows uncertain. For us, the anchor hung in the sky. Once you knew where north was, everything else fell into place. East was where the dawn would rise. West was where the sun melted into the sea. South, south was warmth, strange lands, spices and soft winds. But navigation wasn't only about direction, it was about distance. And that, well, that's where the real secrets begin. The star paths. See, the sky is not random. It's a great spinning wheel of fire. The stars rise and fall in patterns, slow, steady movements that repeat through the seasons. A skilled sailor could read them like markings on a shield. Some constellations we followed for trade voyages. Others guided us to raiding grounds, and others still, they pointed toward home. One of my favourites was the long curve of stars you call the Big Dipper. To us it was Karlswagen, and every Viking child knew it by heart. Follow its arc long enough, and it would point you straight to the North Star. But the stars were not the only guides in the night. No. The sea itself glowed. The sea's secret light. Have you ever seen the ocean sparkle at night? Not the reflection of the moon, no, I mean the living light. Tiny little creatures hiding in the water, they shine when disturbed. Your people call it bioluminescence, but we never had such fancy words. To us, it was simply Haffelden, the sea fire. When our oars dipped in and out of the black water, the ocean shimmered with pale blue trails, like ghosts rising to greet us. It wasn't just beautiful, though. It was useful. When the waves glowed evenly, we knew the waters were calm beneath the surface. When the patterns broke, flickering in jagged shapes, we knew the currents had changed. Even in pitch darkness, the ocean showed her mood through light. Some of the young ones grew frightened the first time they saw it, thinking spirits haunted our ship. But after a few voyages, they began to smile at the glow, to trust it even. The sea was talking to us, lighting our path in its own mysterious way. And sometimes, only sometimes, the water would glow brighter, far brighter. Wide, shimmering sheets of blue, rolling under the hull like living silk. Those nights felt holy. Even the toughest warrior spoke in whispers. Navigating without fear. You might imagine that sailing in complete darkness, nothing but starlight and cold wind, felt terrifying. And sometimes it did. Aye. But fear becomes smaller when surrounded by routine. At night each man had his duty. 2 guarded the sail. 4 rowed lightly to keep us steady. 1 kept watch, eyes sharp, and the helmsman, always the helmsman, held the long tiller with quiet strength. If the weather was calm, we talked in soft voices, not storytelling, not singing, that was for warmer times. Night talk was simple things. Questions, memories, quiet thoughts you rarely speak aloud. You learn much about a man in those late hours, when the sea is calm and conversation drifts like smoke. But even in peaceful times there was one rule. No man slept with both eyes closed. It wasn't an order, just an instinct earned through generations. The sea can change faster than a heartbeat. A single wave can nudge your ship off course by miles, with no one noticing until it's too late. So we slept lightly, in shifts, waking at the slightest change in sound. And let me tell you, the sea has many sounds. Listening to the sea, most people hear only waves, but a sailor hears the differences. Sharp slap against the hull, shallow waters ahead, a deep slow thump, large waves behind, a brittle crackle, floating ice nearby, a hollow echo, a rocky shore hidden in the dark. Every sound carried meaning, and at night, when the world around you is nothing but black air and black water, you rely more on your ears than your eyes. Sometimes, when the night was especially quiet, we heard whales beneath us. They sing, you know, long mournful songs that vibrate through the wood of the ship. Some men swore the whales guided us, that they were the guardians of travellers. Others claimed they brought warnings. Me? I think they were just like us, creatures wandering the great endless blue. The mind of a sailor. You might think all these rules, all these dangers, all these secrets made us hardened, cold men. But the truth is, sailing softens something inside you. When you stare at the same stars every night, when you breathe the same salty air day after day, when the horizon becomes your only neighbour, you learn humility, you learn patience, you learn caution, you learn respect, you learn gratitude, and most important of all, you learn to listen. The sea speaks to those who give her quiet. Many of the men who were loudest on land boasting, drinking, swinging axes became gentle as lambs at sea, not fearful, just thoughtful. Sailors carry many secrets in their hearts, more than warriors, more than farmers, more than kings. Out there, with nothing but stars above and darkness below, a man faces himself. No distractions, no excuses, just the truth. We will speak of more truths, friend. How to navigate without stars, how to find land when the sky betrays you, how to survive days lost in fog, and how to use birds, whales, and even drifting seaweed to find your path home. But for that, sit closer to the fire, friend. The night grows long, and the cold creeps into these old bones faster than it used to. You wish to hear more about the art of sailing? Good. For a ship is not only wood and iron and wool, it is stubbornness, courage, and patience, especially patience. No warrior perishes faster than the one who tries to command the wind. Let me tell you something many young raiders never understand until it is too late. The sea cannot be rushed. You do not insist. You do not demand. You do not shout at the waves as if they're thralls who owe you labour. The sea listens to no man. You must learn to wait, even when your blood boils for action. I remember a voyage where this lesson nearly cost us our lives. It was early in the season, too early, and the fjord was still holding on to thin layers of ice that cracked as our hull slid through. We had set our sights on the Shetland Isles, hoping to trade for fine wool and perhaps take a few sheep by accident. But the wind, it was dead. Flat. Nothing. A silence so complete it felt like the world itself had stopped breathing. The younger men cursed under their breath. Some said the gods were angry. Others gripped the oars as if they wanted to tear the sea open with sheer muscle. But old Ulf, a man with a beard so white it practically glowed, simply sat there, chewing dried cod like he had all the time in the world. He nodded at the sail and said, "When the wind sleeps, you sleep. When it wakes, you wake." Back then I thought he was a fool, a lazy old goat. But the truth is, he was right. Because forcing the sea with oars when there is no wind is like fighting a bear with bare hands. You may have spirit, but you won't have victory. So we waited. Not for hours, but nearly 2 days. Our food wore thin, and men muttered about omens. But on the second night, as we drifted beneath a sky so clear it looked carved from polished ice, the wind finally returned. We didn't hear it first. We felt it. A soft push against the cheek. A whisper. A breath. Like the world waking up again. The sail caught that tiny breeze, and after 2 long days of stillness, our ship suddenly felt alive. The wood groaned, the ropes strained, and the sea itself seemed to rise beneath us as if eager to move. And do you know what happened next? A storm. A great, snarling, furious storm that came roaring from the north like wolves descending on a campfire. That is the second secret of sailing. The wind is a coin with two faces. One will save you, the other will drown you. We barely had time to take down the sail before the first wave crashed over the bow, drenching us so completely it felt like the sea meant to swallow us whole. Thunder cracked the sky open like a shield struck by a warhammer. The younger men panicked, clinging to the benches while old Ulf, God's bless him, tied himself to a post and shouted at us to keep the ship straight or die trying. The storm raged for hours, not minutes, hours. And in that time, the sea taught us more than any Jarl or Elder ever could. The sea taught us humility. The sea taught us fear. The sea taught us that every voyage is a gamble, and not always one you win. But it also taught us that a strong crew, bound by trust, can survive almost anything. When the storm finally broke, we were half frozen, exhausted, but alive. Ulf spat water, coughed, and said, "There, now you know why we wait for the right wind." He was right again, of course. A good sailor doesn't chase the sea. He listens, he watches, he respects. And now I will share another truth, one many warriors overlook because they think only of raiding gold and glory. A successful voyage begins long before you push the ship into the water. The ship must be inspected. Every plank, every nail, every rope. You check the tar for cracks. You look for dry rot. You test the strength of the oar shafts. A single weak rope can decide whether you reach home or sink to the bottom where cold crabs will nibble your bones. A ship is like a living creature. It groans when it's unhappy. It creaks when something is wrong. Learn its voice, and it will warn you. Ignore it, and it will betray you at the worst possible moment. And then, there is the crew. A ship with strong wood but weak men is doomed. I have seen crews of fierce warriors fall apart on the sea because they did not know how to work together. The voyage is not like a battle on land. You cannot simply swing a sword until the enemy stops moving. On the sea, the enemy does not bleed. It does not fear your strength. It does not care how loud you shout. If one man rows too fast, the ship turns. If one man falls asleep at his watch, you crash into hidden rocks. If one man panics during a storm, he breaks order, and that breaks the ship. A successful voyage requires discipline more than bravery, calm more than rage. If a crew trusts each other, they row as one. They adjust the sail as one. They survive as one. And that leads me to another secret, one fewer people speak of. Superstition keeps you alive. Laugh if you want, but even the bravest warriors whisper to the spirits when the waves grow tall. We place amulets of Thor near the mast. We carve runes into the hull. We offer a drop of ale to the sea before setting out. Not because these things guarantee safety, but because a man who respects what he cannot control is less likely to die from arrogance. The gods favour the cautious. The sea favours the humble. I am the sky. The sky watches everything. Learn to read it. The colour of the sunset, the shape of the clouds, the way the birds fly. When the gulls disappear inland, storms follow. When the stars shimmer too brightly, wind is coming. When the moon wears a white ring, hide. Hide fast. Every voyage is a puzzle, and every mistake is carved into the bones of men lost to the deep. I have made my share of mistakes. We all have. But each one taught me something I now pass to you, friend. So remember this. Never rush the sea. Never ignore the wind. Never sail with men you do not trust. And never, ever, assume you can win against the storm. Treat the sea as a friend, and it will carry you far. Treat it as an enemy, and it will bury you deep. Aye, friend, you're still awake. Good. Then sit back and listen. For this part of the tale is not for every ear. Many warriors think the sea is conquered with axes and bravery, but the truth is much quieter, much softer hidden in the heavens above your head. Let me tell you now about navigation, though we never use such a word. For us it was simply knowing the way home, and that is the greatest secret of any successful voyage. You see, when you spend enough winters on the water, you begin to understand something. The sky is not there just to look pretty, or to make gods angry during storms. The sky's a map constant, ancient and truer than any man's memory, and every good sailor knows how to read it. The North Star, the one companion that never leaves you. When you stand on the deck of your ship and the night is calm and the waves rock you gently like a cradle, look up. You'll see a bright star that remains fixed, unmoving, while all others wander around it. We call it Leidostiana, the guiding star. It tells you where north lies, no matter the weather, no matter your fear. I cannot count how many times that star saved my life. Once, returning from the eastern lands, fog swallowed us for 3 days, thick as wool, heavy as smoke. Even midday felt like twilight. Men grew restless, whispering about sea spirits and drowned ghosts. But at night, when the fog thinned just a little, that lone star appeared above us, faint, trembling, but there. With it, we kept the bow straight and the oars steady. Without it, we would have drifted into waters where even whales fear to swim. The sunstone, the gift of clever minds. Now, I will tell you a secret few outsiders know. We carry with us a stone pail, almost like ice. Some call it a myth, but myths have saved more men than kings ever did. Hold the stone to the sky, even on a cloudy day, and it reveals the hidden sun. A glow, faint but sure. It tells you the direction when the heavens try to hide it. Some say dwarves made these stones. Some say Odin placed them across the northern land so the worthy could find their way. I don't know which tale is true. I only know this. A ship with a sunstone has twice the chance to return home alive. Reading the waves. But navigation isn't only in the sky. The sea speaks, always, even when it whispers. The trick is learning to listen. When the waves come in long, even lines, the wind is steady far beyond the horizon. When they twist and break against each other, like two snakes fighting, a storm brews in the distance. The colour of the water changes to dark blue for deep, dangerous trenches, green for shallower, safe waters, grey when the sky is angry and wants to warn you. I once sailed with a young warrior named Einar, strong as a bull, brave as a madman, but as foolish as a chicken chasing its own shadow. He thought reading waves was nonsense, something for old men who didn't want to row anymore. One evening I warned him the current was turning strange. The water moved sideways, though the wind was steady, never a good sign. I said, "Tie the sail, boy. The sea grows nervous." He laughed, called me a scared old goat, and pulled the sail tighter. 2 hours later, a hidden whirlpool caught us. The ship spun so hard the oars snapped like twigs. The sea didn't swallow us that day, but it bit us hard. We limped back home with half a mast and 3 broken ribs. Einar never again laughed at the waves. Birds, fish, and other signs. You want more secrets? Very well. Here is another. Birds know more about the sea than sailors do. Watch them. When gulls fly high and circle lazily, the weather will be good. When they dive low, close to the waves, expect rain or fog. And if they vanish entirely, flying southwest in tight flocks, prepare for a storm. A big one. Fish, too, tell their stories. When the cod move shallow, the currents are warm. When the herrings scatter fast, faster than usual, something is disturbing the water, often whales, sometimes storms, sometimes things even we do not name aloud. Every creature on the sea knows something you don't. Ignore them, and you sail blind. The smell of the land. This one may sound strange to you, but a seasoned sailor can smell land before he sees it. The air changes, becomes heavier, warmer, carries hints of soil and pine and grass, especially at dawn. The waves grow shorter and sharper. The wind hesitates, bouncing from cliffs miles ahead. There were times when thick fog hid the coast so well we could have smashed against rocks without warning, but the smell of wet earth saved us. Why these things matter, you might ask, why so many little details? Why must a sailor memorize stars, waves, birds, clouds, smells? Why not simply sail? I'll tell you why. Because the sea kills men who only rely on strength. Trust me. I have seen warriors stronger than me, younger than me, braver than me, lost forever because they believed the sea could be beaten with muscle alone. But the sea favours those who think, those who listen, those who treat each voyage as a conversation, not a conquest. These small secrets, the colour of water, the tilt of a bird's wings, the faint shine of a star through fog, they are the difference between coming home with treasure and never coming home at all. And now, a final truth. If you want to be a successful sailor, remember this above all. A journey is won long before it begins. Your mind must be steady. Your fear must be controlled. Your pride must be tamed. A ship reflects its captain. A restless leader brings restless seas. A calm captain calms even the fiercest waves. I have sailed through storms where the sky split open. I have crossed waters so black they look like spilled ink. I have navigated by stars so faint only belief kept us on course. And every time the sea reminded me, confidence guides your hand. Humility keeps you alive. Ah, you want more? Good. Then sit closer to the fire, friend. This next part isn't about ropes or sails or stars. It's about something deeper. Something most young warriors refuse to learn until it's too late. Tonight I will tell you about the mind of a sailor and how mastering it is the true secret of surviving the sea. You see, when most people imagine a Viking voyage, they picture nothing but action. Rowing hard, salt spraying off the bow, axes glinting in the sun, warriors shouting victory songs. And yes, we had moments like that. Brief, loud, wild bursts of life. But the truth, the real truth, is that sailing is made of silence just as much as storm and steel. In fact, silence is the first test the sea gives you. The long quiet picture. This. The wind is soft, almost asleep. The ocean is a smooth grey mirror stretching into forever. Your ship glides across it slowly, barely disturbing the surface. You hear nothing except the gentle slosh of the hull, the creak of a rope somewhere above your head, and the occasional sigh of one of your crew. For hours, for days, for sometimes weeks. Most men cannot bear it. Their thoughts begin to echo inside their skulls like shouts in an empty hall. They remember debts they owe, grudges they hold, mistakes they made. Some grow restless, pacing the deck until their footsteps wear grooves into the wood. Some grow anxious, imagining phantom shapes under the water, imagining the sea whispering at them. Some lose their wits altogether. But the seasoned sailor? He learns to breathe with the ocean. He listens to the silence as if it were a song. He lets his mind settle like snow on a calm morning. He watches the horizon, not searching for anything, simply noticing. He lets the long quiet polish his thoughts until they become clear, sharp, calm. This is something the young never understand. They think strength is found in shouting, fighting, proving themselves. But on the sea, strength is the ability to sit still without letting the silence devour you. The shape of fear. And then, without warning, the sea reminds you who's in charge. Maybe the sky turns the colour of ash. Maybe the wind changes direction with a sudden unnatural snap. Maybe the birds fall silent or vanish entirely. Or maybe you simply feel it deep in your stomach, the sense that something is coming. Fear is natural. Every good sailor knows fear. But there are two kinds of fear. There is panic. Noisy, chaotic, wild as a cornered animal. Panic makes you grab the wrong rope, turn the wrong direction, shout over your captain instead of listening. Panic has drowned more men than any whirlpool. And then there is cold fear, quiet fear, the kind that sharpens you, the kind that makes you tighten your grip on the oar, steady your feet, glance at the sky with respect rather than terror. That kind of fear is a friend, a warning, a guide. I once knew a warrior named Armod, a man built like a bear, strong arms, loud voice, fearless, or so he claimed. But strength means nothing when a storm rolls over the sea like a living creature. One day, the sky grew dark so quickly, it was as if someone had thrown a cloak over the world. The waves rose without sound at first silent giants. Armod laughed, said we could outrun them. I told him quietly, storms aren't outrun, they're survived. But pride is a louder voice than wisdom for some men. When the first wave hit us, taller than our mast Armod froze, completely. Eyes wide, face pale, limbs stiff as ice. The sea doesn't forgive hesitation. In his panic, he nearly tipped the ship. It wasn't the storm that almost killed him. It was his mind. Listening to the storm now, storms, they are like living things. Big, loud, hungry. They rage and roar and try to tear your ship apart plank by plank. Yet, if you listen closely, really listen, you'll hear something in the madness. A rhythm, a pulse, a pattern. Every sailor who lives long enough can feel it. The wind howls in cycles rising, falling, rising again. The waves crash in sequences, 3 heavy ones, then a smaller one, then 3 again. Lightning cuts the sky not randomly but in bursts like drum beats. Once you feel that pattern, you know when to pull and when to loosen, when to duck under the shield and when to stand firm, when to shout orders and when to grit your teeth and hold on. The sea tries to break you, but it also teaches you, if you survive. And when the storm finally ends, when the clouds crumble apart and the world becomes quiet again, the silence feels different. Not empty this time, earned. It feels like standing inside a giant held breath. Men cry sometimes after storms. Big men, proud men. They don't weep out of fear, they weep because they're grateful. Grateful to still see the sky, grateful to still breathe, grateful to feel the deck under their feet. The sea takes, yes, but it also gives clarity like nothing else. Why the mind matters. Now you might be thinking, what does this have to do with successful sailing? Where are the real secrets? But friend, these are the real secrets. Because here is the truth no saga sings loudly. The sea does not kill men. Their minds do. A good sailor understands ropes, wind, stars, currents. But a great sailor understands himself. He knows when to act, when to wait, when to trust his gut, when to silence his pride. He knows how to stay calm when the world is splitting open. He knows how to breathe through the long quiet and think through the long chaos. For the ocean is not a battlefield. It is a mirror. It shows you the truth about yourself, whether you want it or not. And so, if you ever find yourself standing on the deck of a ship, with nothing but sea around you, remember this part of my tale. Remember that strength matters, courage matters, knowledge matters, but the mind is the anchor that keeps everything steady. Master your thoughts, and the sea becomes a companion. Fail to master them, and the sea becomes your grave. Ah, you're still with me. Good. Then let the fire warm your hands while I tell you the next part of the tale, a part many young warriors refuse to believe until the sea itself teaches them the hard way. You see, friend, sailing is not only a craft, it is a relationship, a long, unpredictable, sacred one, and like any relationship, it demands respect. Not fear. Fear clouds the mind too much, but a humble understanding that you're nothing more than a guest on a vast and ancient road. Tonight, I'll tell you how we Vikings show respect to the sea, how we read the signs the gods send us, and why the most important choices are made under moonlight, when the world is quiet enough to hear the truth. The sea remembers. Disrespect. Some men think the ocean cares about strength or size or bravery. It does not. The sea has swallowed jarls and kings, swallowed entire ships with enough gold on board to blind a man. It cares only about balance, and whether you treat it with the reverence it deserves. A long time ago, when I was still young enough to believe I knew everything, I sailed with a crew led by a man named Gyrulf. He was fierce, bold, loud, the kind of leader who thought he commanded the waves the same way he commanded men. Before every voyage, the rest of us offered a sliver of bread or a splash of ale to the sea. A simple gesture, a greeting, nothing more than a quiet, "We pass through your home today." But Gyrulf mocked such rituals. "Superstitions," he said. "The sea is just water. It obeys oars, not gods." The first day was calm. The second was slower, but steady. On the third day, the wind died suddenly, like a candle pinched between fingers. The sky turned flat and heavy. Even the gulls fled to land. By nightfall, the storm hit us. There was no warning, no gradual rise of waves. One moment the sea was quiet. The next, it was a roaring mouth opening beneath us. The storm came down so fast the horizon disappeared. The ship rolled hard, wood groaning like an old man's bones. We survived. Barely. But Gyrulf, he didn't. A wave took him overboard. No one saw him fall. No one heard him shout. One heartbeat he was there, shouting orders. The next he was gone. Afterward, none of us spoke about superstition. We simply left offerings in silence because respect is not about fear or belief. It is about remembering your place in a world far larger than yourself. Signs from the gods, or from the world itself. Now, listen closely, because what I'm about to tell you sounds strange if you've never sailed under the northern sky. Sometimes before a storm or disaster the world grows still, too still. The animals sense it first. Fish dive deep, birds vanish, even the wind holds its breath. We call this the gods whispering. Not because Odin or Thor appear with booming voices, but because nature itself gives warnings to those who are quiet enough to notice. Let me tell you of one such night. The moon was pale and thin like a silver claw. We were sailing west, far west, farther than most dared to go, chasing rumours of new islands with trees taller than a longhouse. The sea was calm, almost too calm. The men rested. Some played quiet games with carved bones. Others mended ropes under lantern light. Nothing unusual. Then suddenly, the dolphins vanished. You might laugh, but trust me, when dolphins follow your ship for days and then disappear all at once, it means something. It means the currents below have turned. It means the water around you no longer feels safe to creatures who understand it better than you ever will. I felt the hairs on my arms rise. I told the crew to secure everything. Barrels, ropes, shields, even the cooking pot. Some groaned, thinking I was simply nervous. But within an hour the storm struck from behind us. Not ahead, not the east, not the west. Behind. As if it had been chasing us across the sea. Had we not tied everything down, half the supplies would have gone overboard. We lost only one jar of dried fish, and even that was a blessing compared to what might have happened. So were these signs from the gods? Maybe. Or maybe the world simply tries to warn anyone who listens. Both truths can live together. Why the night teaches better than the day. There is a reason captains make their hardest decisions at night. Not because night is mysterious, though it is. Not because the moon sees farther than the sun, though sometimes it feels that way. And not because darkness makes men honest, though it certainly does. No, decisions are made at night because the day is too loud. Too much shouting, too much rowing, too many tasks, too many distractions. The sea during daylight is a place of action, motion, work. But the night, friend. The night is something else entirely. When the men sleep and the waters soften and the sky opens wide with stars, that is when a captain truly thinks, truly feels, truly listens. Let me take you there for a moment. Imagine standing on the deck alone. The wood is cool beneath your feet. The sail flutters gently, like a sleeping animal breathing. The moon paints the waves silver. Every sound, every creak of the ship, every whisper of wind feels meaningful. Here, in this calm, your mind becomes clear. Here, you can sense danger long before it arrives. Here, you understand what the daylight hides. I once decided the fate of an entire voyage during such a night. We were planning to continue west, but something felt wrong. The currents, the sky, even the rhythm of the waves. I could not explain it, not with words, but my instincts screamed that another day's travel would cost us dearly. So under the stars alone I turned the ship slightly north, just a little, barely a shift. By morning the men didn't even notice, but the next day we passed a stretch of water filled with floating debris, smashed wood, broken oars, signs of a shipwreck. Had we followed our original path? Well, perhaps you would not be listening to me now. Night saved us. The quiet saved us. The ability to feel what cannot be seen saved us. The lesson of this part. So, what should you remember from this, friend? Respect the sea. Not because it demands worship, but because it deserves acknowledgement. Treat the ocean as you would treat a powerful elder, with calm, humility and steady attention. Watch for the signs. Nature always speaks first. The gods, if they wish, speak through it. Ignoring either is the first step toward death. Think at night. When the world is still, truth becomes louder. Decisions feel clearer, and sometimes the difference between life and death is nothing more than the choice you make while the moon is watching. Aye, you're still awake, traveller? Good. Then settle in, pull that cloak a little tighter, and let me tell you about the one thing every sailor fears and respects in equal measure, the storm. A Viking who says he's not afraid of storms is either a liar or someone who has not yet met a real one. But fear is not your enemy on the sea. No, fear is a warning like the cry of a raven circling above a battlefield. What matters is what you do with that fear. And tonight, I'll tell you how we survived storms that could tear a dragon ship in half and toss men into the freezing waves like driftwood. You see, the ocean speaks long before it strikes. That is the first secret of successful sailing. The calm before a storm is never truly calm. The air grows thick and heavy, like a room full of unspoken words. The waves grow smaller, not larger, tightening and tightening as if the whole sea is drawing a breath. And the sky, the sky becomes a strange pale colour, with clouds that have no shape, like smoke from a dying fire. When we saw that sky, we knew we had 10 minutes, or perhaps an hour, no more. My father used to say, "Only fools outrun a storm, the wise prepare." And so we prepared. The first thing we did was strip the sail. Yes, even if the wind was still, we pulled it down. A sail left up in a storm is like a wolf left alone with a newborn goat. It ends only one way. We folded the canvas, tied it tight, and stored it under the deck boards. Then came the ropes. Every Viking knew how to tie knots. Even a child could tie a hauling knot with his eyes closed. But on stormy days, you tied double. Every oar secured, every chest strapped, every shield locked into the gunwale. A loose shield in a storm is not a shield. It's a blade made of wood and iron, flying faster than any arrow. Next was the oars. If the storm was still far, we rowed to angle the ship. If it was close, we pulled the oars in and secured them. And if it was already upon us, well, then all you could do was hold the ship steady and pray the gods were watching. I remember one storm better than all the others. I was not yet a man, just 15 winters old, and I thought myself invincible. We were halfway to the Shetland Isles, 3 days with no land in sight, when the sky changed. Our steersman, Bjorn the Old He, was called Old, because no one understood how a man with so many scars could still be breathing. Stood up and sniffed the air. Just sniffed it. "That's a bad one," he muttered. "A hungry one," I laughed. Imagine that. A skinny boy laughing at a storm older than mountains. The first wave slapped me across the face before he even finished the sentence. Saltwater stings, traveller-like needles driven into your skin. The next wave nearly knocked me off my feet. In minutes the sky split open. The thunder rolled like giants fighting in the clouds, and the sea turned black as pitch. Our ship rose, lifted by a wave so tall it blocked the horizon. When it dropped, my stomach tried to crawl out through my throat. Some men screamed, some prayed, some laughed. Because sometimes laughter is all that stands between courage and madness. Bjorn shouted, "Bail the water, keep her light." Buckets passed from hand to hand, water scooped and thrown overboard. The ocean, of course, laughed at our efforts. For every bucket we tossed, it threw 10 back into the ship. And yet, we steadied. Because we trusted the ship. That is the second secret of successful sailing. Trust the craft beneath your feet. A Viking ship is not made of dead wood. It is made of living wood. Oak chosen at the right season. Planks cut with the grain, not against it. Sap still young so the boards can flex. Flexibility saves more ships than strength ever did. Our dragon ship bent with the waves instead of resisting them. She rose and fell like a breathing creature. If you relax with her, move with her, you'll keep your footing. Fight her rhythm, and you'll end up overboard. Some men panic during storms. They freeze, or they cling to the mast, or they fold into themselves like frightened children. But the sea respects movement. You must work even when you're terrified, especially then. I remember my hands going numb from bailing, my arms shaking, my throat raw from salt and shouting. But the work kept me present. The work kept me alive. Hours passed, maybe 3, maybe 10. In a storm, time bleeds together. Waves roared so loud you could not hear your own thoughts. Lightning cracked across the sky, illuminating faces twisted with exhaustion and fear. Bjorn never sat, not once. He barked orders, steadied the rudder, cursed the gods, then begged them for mercy, all in the same breath. Then, at last, the sea released us. Not gently, mind you. Storms have no gentleness in them. But the roar softened, the waves grew lower, and the sky, torn in half only moments before, began to close again like a wound slowly stitching itself. We were alive, half drowned, freezing, exhausted, but alive. When the first star appeared between the clouds, every man on that ship whispered a prayer, not of thanks, but of respect. Because a storm is not your enemy. It is a teacher, and like all harsh teachers, it does not care if you learn the lesson the easy way, or the hard one. So, traveller, here is the third and final secret I'll give you tonight. You cannot control the sea. You can only understand it. If you listen, it will warn you. If you respect it, it will spare you. If you trust your ship and your crew, you will survive nights that would break lesser men. But if you ignore its voice even once, it will swallow you whole. Now, that is enough talk of storms for tonight. Sit back. Breathe. The sea is calm here and the night is long. When you're ready, I'll tell you the final part of my secrets. How we navigate when there is no sun, no land, and no guide but the gods themselves. Just say the word. Aye. You've stayed with me this far, traveller. Good. For the last and perhaps greatest secret of successful sailing is not about strength, or courage, or how tight you tie your knots. No, it's about finding the way when the world around you turns to nothing but shadows and water. Most folk believe sailing is simple. Point the bow toward where you want to go and row or ride the wind. But the sea laughs at such thinking. Once you're far enough from land, the horizon becomes the same in every direction. North looks like south, west looks like east, and the only thing that changes is your own fear, or your own confidence. Do you know what true darkness is? Not night on land. Land is never truly dark. There are always torches, windows, the silhouettes of trees. But on the open sea, in the dead of night, beneath a cloudy sky air, that darkness is so complete it feels alive. Your own hand disappears at the end of your arm. The ship becomes a shadow afloat on nothing. You hear the waves but cannot see them. You feel the wind but cannot tell its direction. And the sky empty, blank, silent. Many men lose themselves in such a night. Some panic. Some swear the gods are hiding their faces as punishment. Some close their eyes because it makes no difference. They see only blackness either way. But a good sailor, a true Viking sailor, he knows the hidden signs. You see, traveller, navigation isn't guessing. It's listening to the sky, the sea, the birds, even to the wood of your own ship. Let me tell you about the sunstone first. Yes, it exists. I know some folks nowadays think it is only a tale, something we made up to impress traders or frighten kings, but I held one with my own hands, a crystal, clear as ice, warm as a hearthstone. When you look through it, even on a cloudy day, it reveals where the hidden sun sits behind the sky's veil. A faint beam, a thin line, just enough to know your bearings. We used it not every day, but on the worst ones, fog so thick you could choke on it, storms that hid the morning, nights that began before noon. If you tilt the stone just right, the light within shifts and points toward the sun's true position. But that was only one tool. The next guide was the wind. Some lands have winds you can predict, mountains that funnel them, valleys that trap them. But the open sea, its winds change their minds as often as tricks to gods. Still, every wind has a taste. A salt-heavy breeze from the south is warmer. Northern winds carry the bite of distant ice. Western winds smell like open ocean. Eastern winds often bring storms. An experienced sailor could stand on the deck, close his eyes, inhale deeply, and tell where they were on the world's map. Wind is information, if you don't rush it. Then there were the waves. You wouldn't think them useful, would you? Waves seem to come from everywhere, crashing, rolling, pulling. But look closely, no. Feel closely, and the sea speaks. If two sets of waves hit the ship from different angles, it means land is somewhere ahead. Waves rebound off shores, even those far beyond sight, and return to greet you like messengers. When my feet touched the deck, I could feel the rhythm of the water. A long, slow swell meant deep ocean. A fast, sharp chop meant we were nearing rocks or shallows. Sometimes the sea told us of land long before the sky did, but the greatest guide of all was the night sky. The stars were old friends. They never lied. They never drifted. They were the fixed nails in the world's great roof. If you know how to read them, you will never be lost. We followed the North Star Leidastiana, the leading star, never moving, always pointing to the cold lands. If you keep it to your left, you are sailing west. To your right, east. Directly behind you, you're heading south. Constellations helped too. The shape of the wolf, the line of the oarsman, the curve of the serpent. On clear nights, the sky was a map brighter than any ink on vellum. But some nights, the sky disappears, and then you must trust something deeper, your memory of the sea itself. I remember once we were returning from a raid near Francia. Our ship was heavy with silver and stories, but the fog rolled in, thick as wool, swallowing the world. No sun, no stars, no wind, nothing. Just white silence. We couldn't see the oars at our own sides. Bjorn the Old stood at the bow for a long time, unmoving. Some men whispered that we were cursed. Others thought we should drop anchor and wait, even if it took days. But Bjorn shook his head. "No," he said. "The fog lies. The sea does not." He knelt, placed his hand in the water, closed his eyes, and stayed like that listening. The ship creaked softly. The men held their breath. Even the sea seemed to wait. Then he said, "Row northwest, slowly. The tide is pulling us toward shoals." We rowed. Hours passed. The fog did not lift. But shortly after midnight we heard something. A faint, distant sound. Not waves, not birds. A bell. The bell of a monastery near the coast. Bjorn had been right. His reading of the tide saved us from wrecking ourselves on hidden rocks. That is the kind of knowledge no book can teach. So when young sailors ask me how we navigated without compasses, I tell them this: if you trust the sun alone, you will be lost when it hides. If you trust the stars alone, you will be lost when clouds cover them. If you trust only your eyes, you will be lost the moment darkness falls. But if you trust the sea, its wind, its waves, its breath, you will always find your way home. That, traveller, is the last of the great secrets. Now close your eyes. Listen to the quiet. Let the creaking of the ship and the whisper of waves settle your mind. A good sailor knows when it's time to work and when it is time to rest. If you ever want another tale of raids, of winter voyages, of dragons carved into our prows, just ask. I will speak, and the sea will too.